So as you can tell, we're here at the Aston Martin factory at Silverstone. It's been a big day. In fact, Aston Martin claims it's the biggest day in their Formula One history.
Biggest day in Formula One history, John?
No, one of the biggest days in F1 history, the biggest day in Aston Martin's history. I'm John Noble, this is Ben Hunt. We've been at the press conference where they've announced Adrian Newey will be joining the team March next year. Obviously hugely exciting. We had a press conference inside, featured all the kind of the big wigs from Aston Martin. We had Lawrence Stroll on stage, Fernando Alonso was here, Lance Stroll was here, Andy Cowell, who's coming in as the new CEO, first public appearance today. Tech people were all here, Eddie Jordan, Adrian Newey, Amanda Newey, the whole shebaz.
Yeah.
Ben, what did you make of it all?
Yeah, really interesting. I thought it was a big presentation. Obviously, all the TV cameras here. Quite an interesting setup, almost like a wedding. You had all the chairs lined up and then there was an aisle in the middle, and we were obviously waiting for the news. The actual news broke at 11 o'clock when they released a video on the screen, didn't they? It was quite artistic. Adrian drawing and using his set squares and everything else, and then signature. Pretty well done, I thought, on that, and that was obviously being shown live on the internet as well. And then, of course, for the big unveil, you know, Lawrence Stroll come on stage. He was given a big welcome. He was giving a few people a high five. I don't think he can believe how lucky he is to have Adrian Newey in the building, let alone working for his team going forward. Yeah, lots of positivity. And then as the press conference went on, it became perhaps a little bit more intricate, shall we say, in terms of the actual questions and the answers and the responses that were given. But ultimately, yes, this is a big landmark day for Aston Martin. He's coming in not just in a technical capacity, but also as a shareholder as well. So he's overseeing, you know, the growth of the company. So he's actually there now to you know, work, improve the car, going forward from, I think, March the 2nd?
March 1st.
March the 1st. So March the 1st is when he's starting. And of course, yes, he's got a financial interest in the company too now. Yeah,
there's some interesting snippets today. Adrian said his decision to leave Red Bull made at the Japanese Grand Prix, which I thought was quite interesting. Team was dominant, but obviously all the background with Christian Horner. Reference in the press release, and also Adrian talked about on stage, that one of the critical aspects to him making the decision was a secret visit. They had not just this facility only opened this week, the main factory. I think the staff were told to leave, and Adrian was shown around by Lawrence, and it was a really big day. But I think one of the core messages from Adrian, and he was asked on stage, why Aston Martin? And he said Lawrence Stroll.
Yes.
There's something about Lawrence.
Yeah, there is. I think he must have been
ambition and determination.
Exactly. I think it was that he's been sold the vision. Just going back to your point, you mentioned Red Bull, which is something that Adrian tried not to do in there. I thought that was quite interesting. He first mentioned Red Bull, he said the other team. You know, he didn't refer to them by name. And then he actually said Red Bull at one point, and you could tell almost in his body language that he wished he hadn't said it. And then he corrected himself, and we're not here to talk about Red Bull, and quickly dialed it around. So I thought that was quite interesting, you know, from a, you know, just seeing what he didn't want to say. Too much on that subject. He was asked about Ferrari as well, as you mentioned. He was linked with Ferrari in a potential move to hook up with Lewis Hamilton next year, which, you know, would have been hugely exciting for everyone. But yes, he gave his reasons. He said that he wanted a new challenge. That's why he left Red Bull and decided to come here, because he was won over by Lawrence's ambition, and obviously this massive factory and plenty of toys to play with, you know, in terms of design. And he made a joke about how much this factory had cost, and then he said he's going to find out new ways how to spend more of Lawrence's money. So yeah, let's see how that works out.
I think one of the kind of key things, I've known Adrian for decades in Formula One, and I think he's had spells where he's been enthused by Formula One, spells where things aren't going so well, and I think he gets a bit down and kind of loses that spark. And I think that's what happened with Red Bull this season. But I sense again now that spark has come back in this excitement. And I mean, initially said when he was leaving Red Bull, I'm going to, you know, go away with Amanda, we'll share the world, and then I'll come a day or in them a shower, and I think, right, let's go again. That moment's come much sooner. I think he's actually going on holiday this week to take a break before March. So that competitive spirit's there. There was a nice anecdote from Adrian talking on stage where he said Frank Williams once told him in the pit lane, "You're the most competitive person in this pit lane," which Adrian actually said he took insult above. But I think it says much about him, that he digs into the details. He wants the car to be quicker. He's pushing on. I just spent some time chatting to Dan Fellows, the technical director. just saying that Adrian has this innate ability just to kind of focus on areas where he feels he can make a difference. We'll push the car in this area, we'll chat to junior engineers, lift them up and push them on.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, about that spirit, because one of the elements at Red Bull was the fact he was dialing it down, and the suggestion there was that he was only working 2 days a week and wasn't involved in a hands-on role on a day-to-day business. Here it's going to be an entirely different prospect. He's going to be in there 5 days a week working on the car design.
Yeah, because I think he was asked a question about why have you transitioned from 3 days a week at Red Bull to going kind of more full-time now, and he said, I don't know where that 3 days a week came from, but it was a little quite amusing, because there's obviously certain messaging going around from within and without. What impact do you think he can make? How quick do you think Adrian Newey can turn this team?
I think he has the potential for an instant impact coming into the 25 season, which is obviously an evolution of this year's car. But what he will do, he'll give everyone else a lift. They've seen, the staff here have seen new faces coming in at a rate of knots. It's now, he is the big signing. He's the one that can bring them all together. The more I sat in there and thought about it, it was like one of those old school football press conferences, when they have the Galactico signing and then they go and do keepy uppy on the pitch afterwards. That's the sort of feeling that I got, in the sense of he's the guy that they brought in to lead everything forward, and of course his technical ability we don't really need to talk about. We know that that's already there. It's more about the spirit and the galvanising the team around him. As I say, lots of new faces, maybe looking for that bit of leadership, and while he's not actually a tub-thumping leader, it will be his design, his focus, and it will give everyone a lift within the organisation to make that step up. I think that's probably where it's all going to come in.
I think because Lawrence was asked on stage about the money. I mean, there's various figures being bandied about, from 25 million a year to 30 million a year. There's bonuses, there's the shareholding. Whatever the reality is, it's a lot of money, probably a lot more than most of the F1 grid, so it's a big signing.
Yeah.
Lawrence isn't, he may be a rich man, but doesn't spend money unnecessarily. But he referred to Newey as a bargain. And
he did, yes.
I think you're right in terms of it's the extra impact it brings. It brings belief from staff, brings belief from shareholders, brings belief from sponsors, brings belief from drivers. So I think there's very much a momentum pushing forwards.
I mean, what does it say for a global brand when you sign someone like Adrian Newey and you hold a press conference which is being streamed live on the internet? We were talking about this beforehand. I don't ever remember a technical member of staff having his own press conference for signing for a team. This is new territory, rightly so, because of his profile, his reputation, but it gives the whole brand a lift. I'd be interested to know what that's done to the Aston Martin share price, for instance. It has that big positive effect on the global business, not just the Formula One team.
Do you think he's made the right decision coming here? He had offers, from what we understand. Mercedes were interested, McLaren were interested, Ferrari was interested, Alpine were interested. Is this the best?
I think so. I mean, the facility is fantastic. We mentioned it earlier on. It's all brand new. He is really won over. It's him that's come here and seen it all, and that is what's impressed him the most, the actual product that he's got to work with to deliver his dream. And I think that's probably what sold him. The Ferrari element was a change of culture, change of language, lots to learn. Would he really be interested in doing that at his age? Maybe not. I think that this offers him stability in his life, his private life, but with a bag full of new toys to play with, as I mentioned earlier on, and everything's all coming online here, and it's all in preparation for sort of 26 onwards. The facility here, the wind tunnel, everything's all being produced under one roof, with Honda coming in. He's obviously got experience having worked with Honda before at Red Bull, so it's all coming together nicely for him.
Yeah, I think one thing Adrian talked about was what he saw in this team, and I think it was the new factory, the sense of new technology. A place, I think it was a veiled reference to McLaren and its factory. This was a new factory that could generate creativity and ideas, and Adrian's really big on this sort of thing. And some fascinating aspects of him about his three jobs. One was being solitary, at his drawing board, drawing components, coming up with ideas, pushing through. Two, dealing with kind of engineers, working with them, getting the most out of them, pushing them on. And three was that translation from drivers, basically, speaking to drivers at the racetrack, translating what they're saying from how the car's behaving into the car dynamics, making the design push on forward. And I think this is the strength he's got, is that he's just across all these different areas. And I bet Fernando, can't quite believe it, can he? At this stage of his career, to get Adrian Newey
I know.
His arch enemy, as Adrian Newey referred to.
Well, he was on stage, and I'm always impressed by him whenever he talks, but he actually got on stage and gave some really good answers just about that relationship that he's had with Adrian. And he said that he has to be thankful for Adrian for actually driving everyone forward. Everyone's improved as a result of the cars that he's designed, because he's been competing against him and Adrian's cars, that he's been forced to dig deeper, and everyone has improved as a consequence of trying to beat him. So I thought that was quite a nice, reference to it. One of the elements, John, I do want to pick up is the quirkiness of the first discussions between Lawrence and Adrian. They had discussions in hotel gyms, particularly in the Middle East.
Yes, there's a reference on stage. Adrian was talking about how long they've been discussing. Lawrence Stroll repeatedly said it's been 3 years in the making, probably when they first started talking. Things didn't get serious until that kind of Adrian's decision came out from Red Bull. But I think this is part of the F1 world. It's massive, but it's small, and it's a travelling circus. You travel around, you bump into people in restaurants. F1 teams often stay in the same hotels. They've obviously stayed in the same hotels. They've gone to the same gyms, and you can just imagine, Lawrence Stroll, as all successful businessmen do, making an informal offer.
Yes.
Running on the treadmills, sweat. Do you want to come and join us? All this sort of thing, and that just feeding into Adrian's mind. And this is always the great stories, because all the great deals are just always done on the whim. It's like famously when Ron Dennis convinced Fernando Alonso to join McLaren all those years ago. It was an informal chat, behind a podium. Until you throw these offers out, people aren't gonna come on board. But it's exciting times. And what did you make of the event itself? I thought it was quite interesting, just in terms of the kind of the layout. You liken it to a wedding.
Yeah, I thought it was almost like a wedding, but almost like a funeral at times as well. It was quite sombre. So yeah, the wedding side of things was interesting, just the way that everyone was lined up on different sides of the aisle, and you had very much different camps on both sides. You had the current team, and then on the other side you had the former team, and I mentioned people like Martin Whitmarsh in that, who's obviously outgoing. On the other side you've got Andy Cowell, the man that's replacing him. So it was pretty funny in that sense. But yeah, it was it had lots of excitement at the start. Once the announcement was initially made, I think that everything sort of plateaued a little bit, and it got a little bit, bogged down perhaps. One thing I did find quite amusing was Lance Stroll, who was answering messages on his phone midway through the press conference. Probably other drivers sort of messaging him about Adrian. So I found that quite amusing. But no, it was good. And I just say, I think the general feeling is it's going to bring so much positivity to this team. And I think that's worth its weight. That's worth Adrian's money. Yeah,
I think Adrian, he's going to go on holiday, have a break, and he's going to come back itching to. He's going to come quite late into the cycle, so the 25 car will be probably up and running by the time he joins. But I'm sure he will, want some input, be at races, understand it. 26 car, he'll be a bit late. Work on that will start on January the 1st, so he's going to miss the first few months before that goes. But I've got absolutely no doubt that he's going to go from someone who was alleged to be only working 3 days a week. He'll be in here working his absolute kind of all the hours God sends to make this car push forwards.
He spoke about pressure, didn't he? He said, someone said to him, has this move put extra pressure on you, given the numbers which are being put around in terms of the contract and everything else that's gone on, even the event itself? And he said, no, I don't feel pressure. The only pressure comes from within. So he knows what he's got to do, and he's going to be the one that's driving that forward.
So final kind of then question for me, Ben. They've got Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, they've got Lawrence Stroll, they've got sponsors, they've got Honda engines, they've got Andy Cowell, Dan Fallows, now Adrian Newey. Can this team win the championship in 26?
In theory, yeah. I mean, in theory, you have to say that in every department it looks strong. I think if I was going to be picky, I'd say the driver's side. I'm not sure what Fernando's going to be like down there. Lance Stroll, I still think, has got too much to prove. I think that's probably the weakest area, if we're being honest. And that's going to be a very big decision for Lawrence Stroll, knowing that he's got everything else in play. If the weak element you've got is your driver pairing, then that may be some uncomfortable decisions to be made there.
Perfect. Well, we're going to get out of the wind. We're going to see if they'll let us take this home for the evening. Oh, is this our press freebie?
It is, yeah. Fantastic. This is our carry home. Yeah, this is absolutely...
And we'll be back to follow all the latest news regarding Adrian Newey, Aston Martin on autosport.com. and this weekend, Baku Grand Prix.